Hello, and welcome to another video, which is a very normal video. I'm joking, it's not normal at all. I'm doing Lord of the Rings Battle for Middle-earth. You're probably all wondering, has he gone insane? Where's The Witcher? Where's the game we all want? And you're right. You would be very right. I'll get there. So, the reason for this game and the reason for this video is because we hit 10k subscribers, and I've been wanting to make this video for a while, and it seems like the perfect time right now. And I'll explain why, because this game means a lot to me. It's very close to my heart, very close to my childhood. And the Lord of the Rings movies and Lord of the Rings books and everything around it is what gave me my, I'm going to use the word passion because, but it's what gave me the drive in order to actually make videos, in order to make anything from, like, I work as an artist as well, and what got me into drawing in a big way. It's what got me into cinematography, it's what got me into doing the things that I do today, and I wanted to share this game with you because it's from my childhood, and it's very nostalgic for me, and it's very significant, and it's almost so poetically right that I show it to you now because of the timing of the 10k and everything. It's a massive milestone, and I can't even thank you guys enough. So this is almost like a little thank you video, and I wanted to show you, and I mean you sitting there right now watching this video, or standing depending on where you are, or even, I don't know, maybe you're upside down under a bridge somewhere, but that's probably not important actually. But anyway, you who is watching this video, even if you're new here, then hello and welcome, and I want to show you a little bit of my childhood, and I'm gonna look over the game, I'm gonna see how it compares, I'm gonna tell you about the systems, I'm gonna tell you how the game works, and I just wanna have a chill little video and a little moment with you, just to really say thank you and to show you something that got me started in all of this. So without further ado, let us begin. So this game is actually from 2004, and it was first launched alongside other games like, for instance, Rome Total War and Dawn of War, and all of those games rose to be very critically, I didn't mean to do that. All of them are very critically acclaimed, and along with this game itself. And as far as I'm concerned, the thing that always got me about this game, the thing that I always loved about it, even today when replaying it, is the presentation. It's always one of my favourite things, not because it has the best graphics or it has the most amazing looking textures, because it doesn't, but it's because everything kind of fits together so nicely. Everything is married together exactly as it should be. Everything from the systems, everything from the UI, everything from the maps, everything from the characters themselves, everything's designed around this simplicity. Everything's designed around wanting to work together and working with the restraints of the engines that they had at the time, and working with what they could work with. And it's really wonderful when you see old games, because you know the restraints they had back then, you know what they had to work with, and it's really admirable to see that kind of thing. And another thing about the presentation I really love is how every cutscene is kind of made in engine, because that kind of helps just solidify the overall style of the game and keeps everything connected and grounded around, one idea of it all being very simple. The only thing that does kind of bother me, but obviously not to a point where it matters, is that there are actual scenes from the movie put down in the bottom left corner, for like plot points and what happens to characters and blah blah blah, which isn't bad. It's just kind of when something is of a particular level of quality, everything I think has to be the same. It has to work with everything that's around it, and when you have something that suddenly takes you out, it makes it feel very disconnected. It's the same with when you play a game that's very mediocre, and then suddenly it has some really great high points, and that just really makes you notice the low points. It's the same as if you play an old game that's all old, everything. Ow, I clicked my arm, what the hell? Sorry. And then when you try and blend like a movie with a game, I really hate that. It was the same with, there was a game released a while back. Oh, it had the actor from Game of Thrones that plays the Peter guy. Oh, yeah, it's called Quantum Break. Yeah, Quantum Break was a game that also did this, where it had cutscenes, then it had real life characters acting in these episodes, which no, don't do that. You don't need to do that. Just have it all in game. Why do you need to try and blend these two different mediums, which don't look like they can blend? I don't know. And when I say that the game is simple, I don't mean that it's shallow, because simplicity doesn't mean that it doesn't have depth to the gameplay. It just means that everything is really well designed, everything is very intuitive, everything works with each other. You never feel like you're lost in menus or stumbling over what button does what for hours and hours on end, unlike, many other RTS games where you get into it and it's like learning an entirely new language because you have to, understand everything, and that's all fine. It's not a bad thing either way, but this game, it's very simply like, you can play 10 minutes of it or play the 5-minute tutorial and that's it. You know everything you need to do in 5 minutes because that's how it was designed and that's how simple it is. So it's very simple to learn, but it's very hard to master. And there are people out there who can play this game from back to front and they can tell you everything about it. They know things that would make God wonder what was going on. And I'm not religious, but that's besides the point as well. And graphically, the game doesn't really run too well right out of the box if you're using the retail version, because now that EA doesn't have the license anymore, they can't produce copies, and hence you can go on eBay and find copies of this game for like $50. And I actually have an original copy because I was lucky enough to get it when I was a kid, which basically means that there is a version of the game you can download. I've left a link down below in the description for you, and it's free and it was made by fans, and this is the one that I'm using, which means that the graphics have actually been ramped up a little bit more than they were in the original game. In the original game they were a bit blurry, so if you think this looks bad, I'm not going to show you the other game. And just so you do know, I don't know if you know anything about these games, but there was a sequel to this game made called The Lord of the Rings Battle for Middle-earth 2, go figure. It was it basically expanded and advanced everything on a technical standpoint to a level way beyond this game, and it was incredible. I didn't play as much of it because of everything going on in life, but it's really worth checking out as well if you're interested. And another thing about the game is that while replaying it, I realised that they really do nail the atmosphere of the movies. Despite the technical standpoint, they really do make it feel like Lord of the Rings. You really feel like you're inside of that world, and that's really wonderful. And it is insane that they managed to do it. Considering the system and everything else, and considering the engine that they were running on, it's a really big achievement, and it's enough to warrant playing the game through just to see what they did with it. It's really wonderful. And I was going to mention the music because it's by Howard Shore, obviously, and it's the music from the movies, but unfortunately I can't really because I'm not up to getting a copyright claim right now. I really don't want to have to deal with that, so you guys can imagine what this game would be like if there were the beautiful tracks from Lord of the Rings inside of this video. The best thing about the graphics, the UI, and everything else around the presentation side of things is that it all fits together in this wonderful little package, and it includes everything neatly in its place, and it doesn't go over the top. It's just like, here, this is what we can do, and we've made it all a wonderful little package, and you can have it and do whatever you want with it. And that actually leads me on to a perfectly smooth segue onto the single player campaign. Now, since the game is actually obviously based off of the movies, you can play two different campaigns, that being the good campaign and the evil campaign. Now, with the good campaign, you basically follow the events of the movies, and not quite exactly as they happen, but close enough that you won't be asking yourself any questions. So you kind of start at the Mines of Moria, you go to Lothlorien, to Helm's Deep, to Minas Tirith, to Osgiliath, and of course to the Gates of Mordor themselves for the final battle. You can play through basically every major battle from the movie, with random encounters and fights in between the major missions to reclaim territory and gain points basically in order to grow your army and the power and the forces. And the build up to these missions is actually really nicely designed, because in the start you only have the Fellowship to control. In the very first mission, that's all you get, and it feels almost like an RPG rather than an RTS game, because having only a certain amount of units to control makes the game feel a bit more special and breaks up that pacing of a traditional RTS game. And that's really awesome because it's not something you really expect from this, but you do get it. And it's just nice really to be able to learn the basic mechanics of the game in the very beginning, beginning, and as the story progresses, you get to control more units, you get to have bigger armies, so it starts you off small, and it actually has a natural pacing curve which allows you to get more stuff the higher you get and the more you learn, which is awesome. And the story doesn't quite follow the movies like I mentioned. For instance, Gandalf can survive when faulting. For example, Gandalf doesn't necessarily die while fighting the Balrog, and you can also get to play as Sam while rescuing Frodo by finding soldiers from Minas Tirith trapped in Shelob's lair, because apparently that's a thing now, and it's a pretty cool thing, to be honest. And there are also some other examples, such as Lothlorien being attacked by goblins, and also you have the possibility of saving Boromir's life if you get to him on time. But overall the story arc does stay kind of the same, and you have to help destroy the One Ring and retake Middle-earth and watch Mordor crumble, and the only downside to the whole campaign, I would say, is that toward the end you kind of get a bit bored with all the battles in between the main missions, because they are a bit repetitive. And something I always loved is that you get to name your units from the start of the campaign, so as it progresses you can watch them rank up, and keeping them alive from beginning to end can just feel really badass. And you can see them ranking up from these low trained footmen all the way up to these highly trained warriors with golden armor and steel blades, and it's just a really nice touch because it makes you feel really personally attached to your army. Because if you have a rank 10 unit that's been with you since the very beginning, you don't want to lose them, you want them to live, and you will do anything to make sure they make it back alive. And it makes you personally attached to your army, which is awesome. Even if it was unintentional, it's really awesome, and it makes you make decisions more carefully. And plus you can name them really stupid names, which is And there's actually something that impressed me quite a bit from a game design perspective, because alongside every main objective you get inside of each map, there's also a secondary one which can range from finding hidden units, or uncovering treasure, or keeping a certain hero alive. And the reason it surprised me a little is because for the second mission inside the game you get to have the option, or the secondary option, to man a archery tower with bowmen, which is cool because it's something that somebody who is just very new to the game might not even consider a possibility. So this is their way of saying, hey, you can do this if you really wanted to. Because they didn't do it thinking this is going to protect the player from enemy, because that second mission is you could just throw marshmallows at them and the orcs would die. There aren't marshmallows in Middle-earth, are there? The great marshmallow shortage of Middle-earth. Make that into a game, sell it on a t-shirt. And that's all great for the good campaign, but for me the really juicy part is the bad campaign, because it don't do what the movies do in any way, and it allows you to see locations that you wouldn't normally see inside of the good campaign, which actually gives you some incentive to play it besides being completely evil. And let's face it, who doesn't want to be the bad guys just for once, to be the orcs and just to completely destroy and pillage everything? Because there's something about that is really cool to me, and just being able to hoard your enemies and completely obliterate them. Maybe I have some mental issues, I don't know, but it's just really wonderful to see the campaign from that angle, to just see what would happen in an alternative reality, I guess. I always thought that was really cool, and the orc campaign was always one that I really enjoyed playing through because of that. Now, obviously you've seen quite a lot of the gameplay already, so I've no doubt that you've likely figured it all out already, but I wanted to still run through, I still wanted to run through, oh my god, but I still want to show you a few basic things and run through a few systems with you. Oh my god. First off, the game has 4 factions, that being of course Gondor, Rohan, Isengard and Mordor, all of which have their own strengths, weaknesses and play very differently depending on what you want to do. And each army, both good and evil, have these different abilities that you can unlock the more you fight and the more enemies you defeat, ranging from simple health regens to reinforcements, all the way up to eagles, balrogs and the army of the undead. And when you get the army of the undead, it's almost a certainty of game over. So the entire time you're kind of battling each other, you're both worried about how many points you're going to get from fighting, because that can really change everything. No matter how close you are to winning or losing, it can turn the tide of battle, which is what makes it really exciting, because it's your special abilities and it's the things that you leave and the things that you save for the last moment for a just in case. And the game also has a veterancy system, which isn't a word, but it is now, now, and that basically applies for practically everything in the game, from units to structures, meaning the more they do stuff, the more they level up, the quicker they produce units, or the more resources they'll give you, which gives you incentive to protect buildings. It gives you incentive to actually want to protect buildings and want to hold certain areas, because you can't rebuild that time. You need to wait again for it to regain its rank, and etc, etc. You kind of get the idea. So that's a really cool system, because it gives you incentive to want to actually hold your ground and protect whatever you have. There were also upgrades for your units and buildings, from like fire arrows to armor upgrades to weapons to stronger stone walls and like better archery towers. Every base structure could basically be upgraded in order to make it better, and that was always cool because it meant you could always have something to aim for and always something to improve. And whenever I got to the end of a battle, I would always kind of wait before killing the enemy, doing the final blow, just so I could finish upgrading everything that I needed, which is cruel, but also it was fun. And it was also cool because in the second game you can basically build wherever you want, but in the first one you have only certain places you can place your structures, and that made it kind of interesting because you have to kind of figure out what you need and what you don't need, and you have to have a lot more thought process into just generally what you're going to do about certain situations and what you're going to do about the space that you have and how you're going to use it. So hopefully that's given you a pretty good idea about the game, generally speaking. So how does it all hold up after 15 years? Is it still as good and wonderful as I remember it being in my childhood? The answer's yeah. The answer's definitely yes. I didn't really expect it to be, but it really is. It's just as wonderful as I remember it being because of all the same reasons I liked it as a child. It's Lord of the Rings, it's epic, you get to fight armies, you get to destroy whoever you want, and you just get to see the events of the movies and the events of alternative reality and that kind of thing. And that's one of the reasons why I loved it so much, and it's still one of the reasons I love it so much. And I think a reason a lot of the things stand out in the game is because the people behind it really did think about everything. When they were making the game, there was some real passion behind it. There isn't that feeling that it's just another movie tie-in, and that might be me and my rose-tinted glasses. I may be very wrong, but hopefully I'm not, because I think this was back in a time when EA weren't such money-grabbing sons of bitches, and back when everything was a lot more about wanting to do the best they could with what they had, and having the restraints of technology really pushes people to be more creative in what they do, because they know they have to make up for that. They know they have to put in the extra work in order to make something as good as it needs to be to stand out. It is one of those games that does stand out even after 15 years. It's the same reason why The Witcher will stand out for 15 years. Even, 15 years down the road, we'll still be looking at it thinking, wow, that was really good, because it's timeless. And I'll tell you why it's timeless. It's not the graphics, it's not the look of the game, it's not the systems, it's the people. It's the fans, it's the people who are still passionate about it even 15 years down the road. So passionate, in fact, that they're actually remaking the game, the multiplayer version of it, inside of the Unreal Engine, which is insane. They're doing it without being paid, they're doing it just because they want to, in their spare time, because they want to bring it up to what it is today. They want to modernize it. They want to have the Battle for Middle-earth 3 that we're probably not going to get, let's be honest. EA isn't going to get the license anytime soon, even if they did, they'd pick it up, full of loot crates and whatever. But that's what keeps games timeless. It's what keeps the momentum of energy. Even after 20 years, it can still be going strong. Because there will always be people who appreciate when something has effort put into it, and those people will make it timeless because they care enough about it. Whether it's childhood memories, or whether it's the very game that got you into games, or if it's your love for an amazing trilogy of movies and books, or all of that at once. It's the people that make things timeless. It's the fans that keep things from falling into just being a distant memory. And that's one of the things I love about this game, is really the people behind it, the people who are still here trying to make something out of it. And the fact that this game inspired enough people to do that is enough for it to be timeless. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, then please share it around, and until the next one, this has been OK GovBear, and you go and have a very, very wonderful day, and thank you so much for 10,000 subscribers. I hope we continue on for a very long time. More goth.